the first video I'm filming in 2021, so new year, new me, I guess. I've been getting like a bunch of new clothes and stuff for trying to look better on camera instead of, you know, the t-shirts I had before, which don't come out as well across on this camera. Think of it like Power Man Plus or Power Man Final Mix. And you know what? Speaking of Final Mixes, I've been playing the shit out of Kingdom Hearts 3 recently. It's my first time playing through it, and yeah, it's an interesting game, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Now, fair warning, there is a fair amount of spoilery content for all of Kingdom Hearts, and specifically Kingdom Hearts 3 and its DLC in this video, but considering the audience for this kind of video and the way I'll probably end up titling it, you either know, like, going in, like, what the spoiler is, or you have no clue what the fuck is going on. So ever since I started playing this game, I kind of fell into this black hole of just absorbing as much Kingdom Hearts 3 content as I humanly could for the past, what, like week and a half, 2 weeks prior to me filming this video. And it's not just about playing the game, but it's also like watching YouTube videos on it. And I really learned a lot about sort of the state of the game pre-Remind and stuff. Like, I knew little bits of it, but I didn't know the whole story, and sort of a lot of theories about the actual game's development. And one of the things I learned about the game was that development was like really, really rushed. Like, there are like clues in the game about like, you know, oh, why is it like this and stuff like that. And there's all these kind of weird, bizarre things, like certain things were missing, or why is the experience kind of lopsided in these particular ways and stuff. Now, granted, I could have reasoned and figured out like this game's development was rushed on my own without having to have YouTubers tell me, because the game lost a year and a half of development by switching engines, and that development team wasn't at all comfortable using Unreal Engine 4, let alone making HD games in the first place. The Osaka team, their previous game was what? Dream Drop Distance on the 3DS, and then they were expected to make a huge AAA big budget late gen PS4 game as their next project. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. Probably also didn't help that Disney was breathing down the development team's necks like a dragon. Like, you gotta have that brand synergy just right. You gotta have Let It Go from Frozen sung in its entirety in the Frozen world, guys. Come on. Probably also wasn't great that they had to do like 10 games worth of plot thread cleanups with the end of this game and provide a satisfactory ending to the Xehanort saga, like, in one game. So Base 3 was kind of a mess, but the team managed to kind of pull it all together in the end with Remind and the year of patches that changed a ton of stuff. But I can't imagine that if you're a developer on Kingdom Hearts 3, that after you spend a year and a half on Remind, and God knows how many years working on the base game, that you're really that excited to go through all that base game hell again. So what I'm proposing is that instead of going straight into Kingdom Hearts 4, the Osaka team should just develop a standalone Verum Rex game first. I think it's a win-win for everybody if they did that first. I think consumers would really like it, and I think the developers would really get to sort of stretch their creativity in ways that the Kingdom Hearts games might not necessarily be able to. The first good thing about it is that it deals directly with the beast himself, Nomura. It allows Nomura to kind of release his demons related to Final Fantasy Versus 13 after God knows how many years on this project, and just have him just do it all in one go. Now, I know that sounds like really, really bad, right? Like, Kingdom Hearts is a fucking disaster storytelling-wise, and letting Nomura go full Nomura probably isn't the best idea even for a sort of semi-standalone game that is kind of tied to Kingdom Hearts but could be its own separate story if they really wanted to. But hear me out. Now, if you thought Kingdom Hearts 3 was an absolute mess trying to tie up all of this Xehanort saga bullshit, the way things are going right now with Kingdom Hearts lore and all the different plot threads from Unchained Key and Remind and Melody of Memory, oh boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Like, what does the foreteller stuff and figuring out what's inside the black box and delving even deeper into the Keyblade War and diving into the time after that, but before Birth by Sleep, what does any of that horseshit have to do with Yozora and Quadratum and this fictional reality and Verum Rex in general? Like, these two, like, sets of like plot threads seem like so distantly related from each other. Like, trying to like have them both together in like the same game would suffocate both of them, that neither of them could really shine, that the foreteller stuff would basically kind of dry up and, you know, be very abridged, and we couldn't really delve that deep into it. And then on the other hand, you have the Versus 13 stuff, which Nomura can't really fully explore either because it has to share time with this other stuff he's set up. By letting Verum Rex be its own standalone game, you allow it to breathe. You allow it to explore its own characters and themes and setting and world. And that seems really important to Tetsuya Nomura, that he wants this idea like fully fleshed out, that he's not satisfied that 15 only took some of the elements from his original idea. He wants to do the full thing. And so I don't know why he would be like satisfied with putting Yozora into Kingdom Hearts 4 and then just throwing all this lore at you about all the shit he's done. But like, it would be kind of hard to care or impossible to care without having played or experienced it yourself. The best comparison I can make, and I know this is weird, but stick with me, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach versus the DC Extended Universe approach. That the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach would be to let Verum Rex be its own thing and then have Kingdom Hearts 4. That you fully develop the characters and sort of the supporting characters and the character arcs and sort of how everybody changes prior to a proper crossover of the two properties happen, versus the DCEU approach, which is, hey, the Flash is in Justice League. You don't know that much about him, so you probably don't care, but you should. Even though he hasn't had his own solo movie, you should care. But ultimately, I think we know which is probably the better approach. And this point, I think, is really unspoken, but having a standalone Verum Rex game would allow the team to experiment and tinker with the combat system of 3 and build on top of it without having to worry about the Disney shit, without having to worry about all these mandates and having to follow sort of Disney brand guidelines. And I think you can kind of see a mini version of that happen with Remind, that because it's all Kingdom Hearts original characters, the development team doesn't need to worry about pissing off an external partner that they're working with over representation of their stuff if their stuff's not in there to begin with. And so that gives the team the creative freedom to do whatever story they want, or just whatever boss fights they want. But I don't think it's just the developers that are probably really fucking burned with all the Disney shit. I think the fans, are a little tired of it too. Now granted, this is just stuff I've read online, and obviously that's a much smaller subset than the actual like demographic of people who buy Kingdom Hearts games, but I've seen so many people, I kind of stopped counting, there's so many, that request that for Kingdom Hearts 4, that, hey, can we do like Square Enix worlds that we travel to instead of like Disney worlds? And you know what? I can't disagree. If they just did Verum Rex, it wouldn't quite be like Square Enix worlds where you're visiting like other Square Enix properties or Final Fantasy games, but it would be way closer to that. And finally, I think it would make the Kingdom Hearts series way more accessible to way more people this deep in if you have a standalone game that has the combat system of Kingdom Hearts, but not all of the story baggage. I'm actually mind blown that Kingdom Hearts 3 managed to sell as well as it has, considering the gargantuan amount of knowledge that you need to have prior to understanding even a modicum of story in the game. Like, it's incredible that the game just didn't, like, collapse into abject failure and didn't make any of its money back just due to how hard it is to get into the story at this point. Kingdom Hearts' 20th anniversary is in 2022. Think about that. Think about that. We are so deep in lore, and there's just been so much stuff and so much information from so many games just dumped on people, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping. Like, if you're a new player, like, why would you ever want to play Kingdom Hearts? Like, the gameplay might be fun, but in order to even, like, get a gist of what the story's about, you gotta go through a bunch of bullshit. So anyways, guys, what do you think? Do you think that any of this matters at all? Do you really think Kingdom Hearts 4 is coming out in like a couple years? I doubt it, but anyways, that's the video. So anyways, guys, that's it, and have a good day.